So if anyone has the Naaman edition, it's the easiest. We're on page 59, which is part 1, chapter 3, section 4. I'm learning all this technology now. Okay. The place where we get our reward has to be the opposite of what it is now. Meaning now, I think we already mentioned, or he's going to mention, that the dominant feature, there's two parts of a person, the body and the soul. In this world, clearly the body is the dominant feature. Right? We have to eat, we have to sleep, we do other things, we have physical desires. There is a soul which yearns for ruchnius, but the dominant factor in this world is the body. But he says in the next world, that's going to be the opposite. Kihine, kol mashiach chaimer sholet ba'osos man. If it would be that the physical part of a person would be the dominant factor in that time, in Olam Haba, the next world, Hine lo haya ela machshech u'ma'akev al neshama shelo tisdabek beborur yizbarach shemo. If the body would be dominant in Olam Haba, then that would impede the soul from cleaving to Hashem, because we said the ultimate reward and the ultimate goodness is to cleave Hashem, and that's with the soul. And if the body would be dominant in the next world, that would impede the soul's ability to cleave to Hashem. Clear? Okay. V'al kain, therefore, hine roihu shelo tishlot az ela haneshama. So the dominant force in the next world is the soul. V'achomer yeh nimshach achreha legamre ba'ofen shelo ya'akev al yada klal. And the physical will go after the soul, and in a way that the soul will not impede the connection of the body will not impede the connection of the soul to Hashem. Now, I don't know before I learned this from Chal, I had always thought in Olam Haba, our body stays here, and our soul cleaves to Hashem, and that's it. But it's clear from the Ramchal, it's not like that. That the body also gets rewarded in Olam Haba. That the body will actually become purified through the soul until... Oh, sorry, two people are waiting. Oh, thank you for those who are joining us. I'm just learning how to use Zoom. Apologize. Okay, so we're just saying that in the next world, the dominant factor is the soul, and the body will go after the soul, and will also be part of the reward in Olam Haba, which makes a lot of sense when you think about it, because in this world, who goes through the tests and who has the free will? It's the human being, and the human being is comprised of the body and the soul. So the fact that the body and the soul succeeded in those tests makes sense that the body should also be part of the reward. And we're going to learn later that the soul is actually going to purify the body and make it holier until the point where, like he says here, the body will not impede any spiritual desires, right? You're not going to have to eat, and you're not going to have to drink and sleep in Olam Haba, and it's actually going to happen through the soul's purification of the body. I don't know, did everyone else think that? Like, did everyone else just assume that the soul would leave the body and that's Olam Haba and that's it? So yes. That's how I always thought. Now I just want to...
Is it saying that it's supposed to be equal? That it's going to be an equal amount of reward for the body as it will be for the soul? Or it's just there'll be a percentage, but it's really mostly going to be the neshama?
It sounds like the whole person gets the reward, but the neshama is the dominant part, and then the soul will go after the body will go after the soul, and the soul will purify the body, making it more spiritual. We're going to learn soon when we talk about Adam HaRishon that that Adam HaRishon, before he sinned, actually had some sort of physical body, yet it was not a physical body that we have now. There's kind of, I guess, apparently different levels of that. Now, just a disclaimer, something we mentioned last week, but it's important to mention. When we say Olam Haba, right? Colloquially, when Jewish people, someone's giving a speech and says Olam Haba, we think that means like heaven. When a person dies, they go to heaven. They go to Olam Haba. So technically, in the Ramchal and in Judaism in general, when we say Olam Haba, that's not what Olam Haba is. When a person dies, that is not Olam Haba. When a person dies, his neshama goes to Gan Eden or Olam HaNeshamas. Olam Haba is after Mashiach comes, and after this Tchias HaMesim, the entire world will be transformed into a more spiritual existence, and that's where we're talking about now will be the ultimate reward for people in Olam Haba. So when it says like Kol Yisrael Yishlem Chelak Olam Haba, it's not talking about right after a person dies. It's talking about after Mashiach, after Tchias HaMesim, and after the 6,000 years of creation, that the world is going to be totally transformed into a more spiritual existence. And the Ramchal is going to talk about that more at great length. Now he's going to start talking about Adam Harishon, which is the title of the class. It was something like that. I hope everyone likes The Simpsons. That's the picture I used. The Simpsons Adam and Eve episode. But the idea of Adam Harishon, when we hear the story famous that Adam and Eve were created in the garden, and they were told not to eat a fruit from the tree, which was not necessarily an apple, and they ate from it, and they were banished from Gan Eden. So a simple story, and we learn a lot of lessons, obviously. So there's much more to the story than meets the eye that you wouldn't necessarily get from just learning the simple story. As the Ramchal is going to tell us, when Adam Harishon sinned, when Adam and Eve ate from the tree, when they weren't supposed to, all of creation changed. The actual physical and spiritual nature of the entire universe changed with that sin. So it's a very important part of human history. Also, what's important to keep in mind, we'll see throughout the Ramchal's writings here, is that there is a plan for world history, right? One might think, like we've been discussing, that a human being was created in order to get reward. So he has free will, so he can do the right thing or the wrong thing. So it could have been that Hashem made, you go into it's like a video game, and you have different tests and challenges, and if you pass a lot of tests, you get more reward. But each individual maybe just has their own thing to do, and there's no larger picture, right? That we each have different challenges, and we're not interrelated, or there's no grand plan for humanity. But that's not the case. We're going to learn that in addition to each individual coming into this world and being faced with challenges and had the free will to do the right thing or the wrong thing, in addition, all of human history has a plan, right? So it started with God creating Adam and Eve, and they had their mission, and obviously we know they failed. And human history will progress. We're going to learn that the goal of humanity is to get to the level where Adam and Eve were before they sinned, and Tchias HaMesim, and Olam Haba, like we're discussing. So it's important to remember that all of history, human history, has a plan, and we are going somewhere. And the ultimate goal is to get to Olam Haba, which is the transformation of this world into a more spiritual existence where people like us will get our reward and not the people who Zoom-bombed earlier. Is that clear? Any questions? Okay. Oh, I see Will asked a question. So all that we're talking about is... So all we are talking about is all after resurrection of the dead. Will, what do you mean? It's easier to... I don't know if he's still... Okay, if Will... yeah, you want to clarify the question?
Yeah, just from before, I think you were saying that we were specifically talking about the Olam Haba as opposed to Gan Eden. Is that correct? Or...
Right, yeah. Olam Haba is when this world that we're in now, the entire world, the entire universe, will be transformed into a more spiritual existence. So that's Olam Haba. When we talk about Olam HaNeshamas, Olam Haba doesn't exist now. That's not, right? This world is still a physical world. It hasn't been transformed into the spiritual existence. Olam HaNeshamas is where, when a person dies now, there is some spiritual Gan Eden, which is where Adam Harishon was, which we're going to learn that Gan Eden was really seemingly a spiritual place that you can't like explore Africa and find the Garden of Eden somewhere. It's on more on a spiritual plane. That is where souls go now, before the resurrection of the dead. But Olam Haba is when this world that we're in now will be transformed into a more spiritual existence after Mashiach and after the resurrection of the dead. I don't know if that answers your question or if you're asking something else.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let us continue.
That means the people. That means the people that have died for however many years, they've never gone to Olam Haba yet.
Right.
Either Olam HaNeshamas or Gan Eden, but they haven't gone any further.
Yeah, Olam HaNeshamas and Gan Eden is the same thing. Just different way to say it. And they get reward there. They get a similar reward that's going to be a spiritual reward that is going to be gotten in Olam Haba, a similar type of reward. But
someone who died like 4,000 years ago, so however Hashem spreads it out throughout because there's no time in from what we understand, it hasn't been finished up. Like it's still being saved for Olam Haba, so they haven't gotten everything. Even on on a certain sphere, you're saying that they're still limited on how much reward they're getting till after Mashiach comes, because then they'll get their real reward.
Right. I don't know how the reward works and how it's like divvied up between. I mean, one thing is for sure. I don't think it limits it in any way, because we learned earlier that the Midah Tova, I think he said, is Meruba, meaning that if you think about it, the Chesed of Hashem is that we're in this world from, hopefully 120 years, and the reward is infinite, right? That's forever. We're getting reward forever. So it really doesn't bother me to say that, whatever reward, I'm postulating here that whatever reward they're getting in Olam Haba, that spiritual reward, they will also be getting now in Olam HaNeshamas. But just that the term Olam Haba, when we use it, means this world that we're in now being transformed into a spiritual existence. Okay, so now, again, so we said that human history has a plan, has a goal, and the Ramchal is going to start at the beginning. Adam Rishon, Adam and Eve. That's where the human history started. So let's learn what happened with Adam and Eve. Something you have to know. I mean, and you see how integral this is to know this, because and how important the story of Adam and Chava is, and how unfortunately some people who treat this story as a God forbid, as an allegory, which is a little absurd. But I mean, it's more than a little absurd. But we're going to see from the Ramchal how important it is, the story of Adam and Chava, and how integral it is to human history in general. So more we have to know. Shehine hamina noshi, mankind, einin yano harishon k'moshe'anu roim u'mavchinim otzoata. The way humanity is now was not the way it was originally. Ki ulam shina gadol hayabo. There was a great change that happened to humanity. V'hu inyon cheto shel Adam harishon, and that is the sin of Adam. Shenishtana bo ha'adam v'ha'olam mima shehayu betchila. The world changed from man and the world changed from what it was originally. So before Adam sinned, someone's asking a question. Rachel Devar, I think when you're asking, about a few tzaddikim entering Olam Haba, do you mean like Eliyahu Hanavi who went there with his body, like that type of thing?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm thinking it means Olam HaNeshamas. I don't think it means, because
okay.
That's what I think. But
I don't know. I just asked the question.
No, it's an important distinction. Like why it's interesting why those tzaddikim specifically went to heaven with their bodies. Okay, I have to look into that. But I believe it's an Olam HaNeshamas. But what he's saying now. But that's a very good point, and I want to look into that exactly, why those tzaddikim and what specifically about that reward is very, very interesting. But the idea here is, before Adam sinned by eating from the tree of knowledge, and now creation is totally different. Totally different. Okay. The details of this are great. They are many. And God willing, we're going to talk about them in great detail. So we see that whenever we talk about mankind and humanity, and different distinctions, they're twofold. Whenever we talk about man, there's two things we have to talk about. We have to talk about man and everything that's associated before the sin. And we have to talk about him after the sin. And like we are going to explain. So when we talk about, Adam Rishon, Adam and Chava eating from the Eitz Hadas, Adam and Eve eating from the tree of knowledge, and it wasn't just that they were kicked out of Gan Eden and they sinned in front of Hashem, and now they're punished that they have to work for a living, and that a woman has to have a hard time in childbirth. That is true. But in addition to that, the human being changed, the nature of a human being changed, and also the world itself changed. Okay. Any questions so far? Good. Okay, let's continue. We're on Vav. For those following along or just joining us, we are on Aleph Gimel Vav, which is 1, 3, 6. Sorry, every once in a while I have to admit someone. So Leia's not here to help us, so or run the whole thing. So it's a little harder. Okay. Hine Adam Harishon be'es yitziraso hayamamish be'oso hamatzav shezacharno adhena. Adam, when he was created by God, was in the situation that we are discussing now. Dahainu shehinehu hayamorkov mishnei achalakim hafchiyim she'amarnu shehem haneshama v'haguf. So one thing that was similar to Adam Harishon, to us, is that we said all human beings have a body and a soul. Adam Harishon also had a body and a soul. Uvemitzius hayishnei inyanim, and they were two separate things, hatov v'hara, good and evil. V'omid b'shikl beinehem, and he stood between the two. Lihidavik b'mashir mehem, he could cleave to whatever he wants. He was created with a body, so he could cleave to the part of him that was a body, or he could cleave to the part of him that was a neshama. V'hine hayarolo shiv chabartov, he should have chosen good. V'yagbir nishmaso al gufo, so that his soul could have dominated his body, could have overcame his body. V'sichlo al chamro, and his intellect over his physicality. V'az hayam ishtali miyad v'nach b'shleimusa lenetzach. Had he done that, he would have rested with in a state of perfection eternally. Meaning, had Adam Harishon not sinned by eating from the Eitz Hadas, and he would have done what he was supposed to do. The Torah says la'avda l'shamra. Most learn that he had one positive commandment, la'avda, and a negative commandment, l'shamra, not to eat from the Eitz Hadas. Had he done that, then the entire world would have reached its tachlis, would have reached its purpose, and Olam Haba would have happened right then, and he would have gotten his eternal reward forever. Right? We're going to learn later, just giving a little spoilers, that the situation we're in now and the entire 6,000 years of human history is only to get us to the point of Adam before he sinned. That's the entire point of human history. Had Adam before not eaten from the Eitz Hadas, then the world would have been transformed into Olam Haba, and he would have gotten his reward, Lenetzach Netzachim, forever. But that did not happen, as we are aware. V'tzar sheteda, you need to know, she'afal pi she'ein anu margishim l'neshama baguf pa'ula acheres, even though we don't feel our soul in our body as like a separate thing, zulas achios v'askala, just the fact that we're alive, and intellect, hine be'emes yesh bechuka she'tezachich etzem haguf v'chamro. But nevertheless, the soul has the power to purify the body, v'chamro usaleo ilo yacher ilay, and to make it go to a higher level after higher level. Ad shiuroi lihis lavos ima bahana b'shleimus. This is what we mentioned before a little bit, that the soul has the power to purify the body until the body will just kind of go after the soul. Like we mentioned in Olam Hazeh, in this world, the body is the dominant force, but in Olam Haba, the soul is going to be the dominant force, and it's the soul which is actually going to purify the body, so the body is going to go after the soul. And that matzav, that situation where the soul would have been constantly purifying the body until the body would have been subservient to the soul, had Adam Harishon not sinned, he would have gotten to that matzav, he would have gotten to that situation right away. Right away. His soul would have purified his body, purification after purification, until he would have gotten to the proper level of purification, and he would have enjoyed eternal reward, eternal pleasure. Right. I'm just scanning the notes, making sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, he actually, if you have Rabbi Naaman's edition, in footnote 65, he mentions what Devora brought up about the that certain people, like he says, Chanoch and Eliyahu and Navi, they went up to heaven, they went up to the Olam HaNeshama, to Gan Eden, with their bodies intact. So he doesn't talk about it here, but he gives us a place to look. This is why I love Rabbi Naaman. It seems to look in Das Tfunos, page 55, and to look in Mesilas Yesharim, chapter 12, and he might talk about it here. Yeah, we'll see. He might be talking about it here. I'll take a look more after, but it was just interesting. He brought up the question that was just asked. Okay. Let's go a little further. So that's what would have happened if Adam Harishon didn't sin. If Adam and Eve didn't sin by eating from the Eitz Hadas, they would have the world would have been transformed to Olam Haba, their souls would have purified their bodies, and they would have gotten eternal reward, and all of human history wouldn't have happened. We wouldn't have needed it. So we know that they sinned. We've all read the end of the story. If you have not read the story of Adam and Eve, I suggest you do that, because it's going to make understanding this class very difficult. Since Adam sinned, things went through a great change. Before Adam Rishon sinned, all the deficiencies that were in creation, they were at the level that was needed for Adam Rishon to have a balance, to choose between good and evil. And he had the opportunity to get to perfection through his own work. Through his sin, through his sin, that caused more chesronos, more deficiencies to enter man and to enter the world as a whole. And it became harder for humanity to reach the perfection that needed to be reached. So when Adam Harishon sinned, that caused deficiencies to enter man and deficiencies to enter creation. Now, he cites here Rabbi Nahum in the Nefesh Chaim, that's famously that before Adam's sin, evil was outside of man, and now evil became part of man. So we mentioned before, it's important to, I think this is an important point, that Adam Harishon still had a choice between good and evil. So what do you mean? If we say the Yetzer Hara was outside of him, what part was the body that we said was a negative aspect of him that made things difficult, that gave him a challenge? So we mentioned the letter from Rav Yisrael Salanter that there are two parts of the Yetzer Hara. There's the fact that we have a body. The fact that we have a body alone means that we have a desire for physical things against spiritual things. And there's also a negative spiritual force that tries to get us to sin, independent from the body. So it sounds like before Adam Harishon sinned, the only thing he had pulling him to do evil was his body. He didn't have internalized that evil, which he calls here zuama. It's a type of spiritual impurity. That he didn't have yet. But after he sinned, that zuama became part of man. So in addition to having the body, we all have a body which wants to do physical things and not cleave to Hashem and not go after the neshama. In addition to that, the zuhama, which was external, which was symbolized, more than symbolized, was the nachash, was the snake, the serpent, that became internalized in Adam Harishon when he sinned. Now, what's very interesting also, he cites here that when we say that the universe was different before Adam sinned, it seems like we wouldn't be even able to see Adam Harishon before he sinned with our eyes. He was on such a high level. It was such a different level of existence that what Adam Harishon called physical before he sinned was what we would call spiritual. And it says that animals actually were on the level that humans are now, and that after Adam sinned, all of humanity got knocked down a peg. So now we are on the level that animals were before he sinned, and animals, I guess, got knocked down even more. It says, the Ramchal writes, except for, I don't know if anyone has learned the Gemara in Chulin, except for the Chamor, the donkey of Rav Pinchas ben Yair. There's a famous story where the donkey of Rav Pinchas ben Yair, he wouldn't eat tevel, he wouldn't eat food that meiser, that wasn't tithed properly. So, like, what was he doing? So the Ramchal actually writes that the donkey of Rav Pinchas ben Yair was still on the level of the animals before Adam Harishon sinned, which is very interesting. But the idea is that, meaning Gan Eden, we keep saying that neshamas go to Gan Eden because Gan Eden isn't what we call physical. It's not a physical place in the terms what we would call physical now, but rather the physicality of Gan Eden and the physicality of Adam Harishon before he sinned is almost what we would call spiritual, right? We can't see anything spiritual. You can't see your neshama. According to the Rambam, you can't see malachim. You can't see spirituality. That's on a different plane of existence. So Adam Harishon before he sinned and Gan Eden are on a totally different plane of existence. Now, after Adam Harishon sinned, then it got knocked down to the level that we are on now. And because of that, all of human history is that we have to get back to the place where Adam Harishon was before he sinned, and then we can get to Olam Haba. So in a way, it's kind of like there are three levels. So like humanity started out here, Adam Harishon before he sinned. Now, had he done what he was supposed to do, it would have been, boom, Olam Haba, his soul would have purified his body and constant reward. But since he sinned, we're down here. So now, first, before we even get to Olam Haba, we have to get back to Adam Rishon before he sinned. And after that, then we can get to Olam Haba. So all of human history, what Adam Rishon could have done in 5 minutes, or not very shortly, I mean, I think it was, he had the time before Shabbos to just not eat from the Eitz Hadas. Now that takes us all 6,000 years of human history to accomplish that. But just like us, Adam Rishon did have that struggle between the body and the soul, and we're saying that even though he had a body which had certain, was drawn to physicality, the tumah of the Yetzer Hara, of the Zuama, that was not internalized within Adam Rishon, that only happened after he sinned, and that's what we have within us now. So while Adam Rishon was only dealing with the body aspect, we have to deal with the fact that we have a body and the impurities of the Yetzer Hara, which are a part of us. I think we'll stop here for this week. If anyone have any questions or clarifications? Great. Everything clear? That's great. Any comments?
Oh, very good. Thank you. Very good.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming. Oh, was there a question? Same questions. Anyone want to comment on unrelated topics? If not, it's great. It's okay.
Also, I was wondering about that Zoom. Was it taken away like by Hart's